Good morning. Good morning. Yay! This is the second day of our conference. It's great to see you all here again. It's always stressful to be the first speaker in the conference, so let's cheer me up. So thank you very much to attend this session on time in this very early morning to coincide. It's quite a long way, so I appreciate your attendance. So in this session is called Global and National Agency for Sustainability. The concept of sustainable development actually is not new. So if those who are familiar with this topic, we all noticed that the first very important report, Our Common Future, actually was published in 1987, and which means 38 years ago. And it takes us 38 years to organize ourselves to launch the first inaugural Culture and Sustainability Conference in Hong Kong. So actually we need to catch up a lot in this journey, and we need to do a lot more in upcoming future. So culture has been missed out in the previous discussion of sustainable development because people don't think that culture is important. But but in recent years, in some of the international venue or like climate negotiation, like COP conference, etc., they start to incorporate culture into the discussions. And very importantly, UNESCO this year in September has just launched a very important report on global policy and culture. So without further ado, I think we need to catch up with all this new knowledge and also how the other nations are doing some real actions to connect us together and move forward to contribute to our sustainable development together. So to allow more airtime for our distinguished speakers here and online, may I invite Dr. Yongbik Han, Dr. Han. She is from the UNESCO Regional Office for East Asia, and she has started to work in Beijing since 2022, and she has a lot of experience in working in UNESCO Bangkok office and Hanoi office, and implements a lot of new initiatives pushing culture and heritage and innovations to make these things important for us all for sustainable development. So may I invite Dr. Han to come on stage and share the latest report.
Thank you very much, Anna. And I must say that a lot of what we do, a lot of what I did within the UNESCO context was very much benefiting from Anna's expertise and collaboration. So it is a great effort that we have done together over the past decade or so. And good morning, all the colleagues, all friends. It is really exciting for me to be here today. I have given countless numbers of presentations over my past 16 years of career at UNESCO, but I must admit that there are not that many occasions that I have volunteer audience to come to the event. I have volunteer organizers to really put a lot of efforts to put all this together. I know how much work that you have dedicated, and I really appreciate this bottom-up, as Louise had put it, the civil society-led, young people-led efforts. And this is really becoming more and more important in the global context, where we know that we cannot always depend on the government support. Of course, they are doing their best. I know that very well. But then it is the mandate to promote culture linkages with sustainability cannot just be done by any sectors alone. So I think this is a really great demonstration of how we begin to work together to address these important challenges. So I'm here to share with you this very exciting news that Anna already brought to you in her introduction, to share with you some of the findings from this unprecedented global panorama of cultural policies that had just came out in September. This covers all the regions, that cover all the domains, because as you know, when we talk about culture, we often talk about heritage separately from performing arts, or even tangible separately from intangible. But this report is really bringing all the domains together. It consolidated data from all reports that 192 state parties to UNESCO have submitted over the years across all cultural conventions, programs for the past 2 years. And that was launched at the Mondial Kun 2025. Mondial Kun is the largest global policies for sustainable development that UNESCO convened. We had the first Mondial Kun in 1886, but as the situation in Hong Kong, it took us until 2022 to convene another Mondial Kun 2022. And from the Mondial Kun 2022, a declaration had come out to advocate for culture as a global public good. And the Mondial Kun 2025 was organized just in September with the participation of 150 ministers from the countries around the world to review the implementation of the declaration and to advocate for culture to be the separate goal. Because as you know that we have the Sustainable Development Goals will be ending in 2030, and all the member states to the state party to the UN start now negotiating on the post-2030 development agenda. And we are really fighting for culture to be a separate goal. Now, as you know, that over the 17 goals, there's no culture goal. You see a little bit under 4.7 when we talk about the cultural diversity within the education goal, and then we see the 11.4 to protect the world cultural and natural heritage. But then other than that, there was really nothing. So please fight with us and all our country leaders who have now get very much on board. So the report covering 6 thematic pillars that you can see on the screen, it really provides a comprehensive framework for integrating culture into sustainable development across all sectors and regions. We see cultural rights and inclusion to safeguard diversity, artistic freedom, and in a lot of the cases, indigenous rights, which is very important for many countries. Digital transformation is an emerging issue, but it's very, very relevant in countries in East Asia, for example, because of our advanced status in technology development. One of the important thematic pillars is for culture education, for culture to be integrated in non-formal, formal, lifelong learning, and also to provide an opportunity for culture sector professionals to be continuously updated in their capacity to address all these challenges. Culture economy to ensure fair pay, decent jobs, and inclusive growth. Culture and environment. And this one has been highlighted as one of the less emphasized link across the 6 thematic pillars. So meaning to say that there's a lot more that can be done within the culture and environment sector. And then the last thematic theme is the culture and peace and resilience to rebuild trust and identity after the crisis. So I'm going to talk through some of these issues in the presentation. So the key message that we see is culture. A lot of countries reported on how they include culture in national sustainable development plans. But then how it is done, it is still a big gap. Of course, you check the box, but then how to really ensure that culture being permeated into every single sectoral plan. Not many countries has been able to do so. So why the country report as such, we still see that the culture sector remains one of the underfunded sectors, undervalued sectors, and also undermeasured. You will see that in my next slides. So why we are advocating for culture to be a standalone goal in the post-2030 agenda we really would like to use it to ensure the visibility and accountability of the culture sector, to secure the investment and then policy coherence across the culture sector, and to embed culture in all areas of sustainable development goals, including peace, education, climate, and the digital agenda. I don't know where to point already. No, I pressed the wrong button. So you can see this is just a few of the figures that you can see at the moment. The global GDP, culture and creative industries account for 3.39%. Some countries, some cities could push up to 10%, which is very, very significant. And of course, you will see in balance, some countries would not be anywhere near 3%, right? The employment, the global workforce of the culture sector accounts for 3.55% of the global workforce. And then when you look at the culture and tourism across the 250 cities, generated 741 billion. And this is especially significant when we can be reminded that by 2021, 2022, tourism almost didn't exist because of the COVID-19. So we can really see that how culture can be the springboard to really build back better in the situation. And then you can see on the table here that provides the additional detail on the different median, minimum, and maximum country budgets by the income group, showing the strong link of how national GDP and investment in culture correlates. We see some very, very big gaps across the countries. You see that the high-income countries, the median per capita cultural expenditure is 2,000 times more than the country in the low-income country. So really, it shows the participation, the big gaps in the participation, accessibility to cultural life. For example, you also can see that only 1 in 4 countries have the means to protect their cultural and natural heritage. So no matter how much they want to do that, they understand that has to be done, but they just do not have the means to do so. They don't have resources, they don't have capital, they don't have human resources to really protect. They are too busy fighting wars, for example, to really protect the cultural heritage. So this figure really underscores the need for targeted policies and resources and to ensure that the culture can effectively contribute to SDG. So this highlights a bit of the regional differences. This regional consultation was something that had been done in all regions before the Mondial 2025, so that we can bring the different regional voices to the global conferences. So you can see that across the region, culture is increasingly seen as a foundation for inclusive and democratic societies, yet priorities really vary by the context. For example, in Africa, creative economy, particularly in music, fashion, and film, is a dynamic source, and this one very largely thanks to a lot of efforts that UNESCO has been working with the African countries. But then you can see that public investment or infrastructure remained quite weak. In Asia-Pacific region, also shows contracting realities, but of course, Asia-Pacific region is the most diverse, the biggest, but also the most diverse country. We have countries with a very high economic conditions like Australia, Japan, Korea, China, but then we also have a number of Pacific islands, Vanuatu, Niue, some of the countries that maybe not many people have heard of names, and now they are facing great challenge. So, but then in general, many of the advanced systems are adapting to digital and climate transitions, while others focus on safeguarding cultural rights, ensuring digital inclusion, and integrating culture into education and migration policies. And we have Latin America and Caribbean working a lot on cultural justice, gender equality, and the empowerment of the indigenous people, which accounts for a large population of the region. We see the Arab states emphasize on building resilient country ecosystems through legal reforms, country education, and the stronger data system. And then we have Europe and North America. They are really a bit ahead the curve, where they are now rethinking about the established framework to address these new challenges. For example, artificial intelligence ethics, climate resilience, misinformation, and fair governance. But we can see that across the regions, there is the growing convergence on the need for an inclusive governance, artist mobility, reliable and gender disaggregated data, and the integration of culture into education, economy, climate actions, and digital transformation. And in Asia Pacific, the discussion, the consultation has revealed both strong momentum and enduring disparities, some of the reasons that I just mentioned earlier. So we can see that culture is increasingly recognized as the driver for sustainable and inclusive development, mostly through digital innovation, gender equality, and youth participation. But yet, the uneven infrastructure, limited funding, and persistent digital divides continue to constrain access, particularly in rural communities. And the region is also advancing efforts to embed culture in education, climate adaptation, and migration policies, alongside legislative and institutional reforms that strengthen governance and data system. And overall, the message from Asia Pacific is clear: to ensure resilience and inclusion, culture must be firmly integrated in broader development agenda. There are many gaps that the report had identified. There are fragmented governance and weak interministerial coordination. You can see that Ministry of Culture often have weaker voices when we are discussing among the ministry for the government state budget. Culture is not always considered as highly as like infrastructure, construction, for example, agriculture, health. Of course, all sectors are important, but the reality is Ministry of Culture often have weaker voices, less funding. Culture also has many, the reality of the work of culture, that it has to be mainstreamed in all these different ministries, right? Education, agriculture, health. But then the collaboration among the sectors are very weak. Very often that sectors do not talk across each other, with each other. And also within the culture sector, we have heritage people never talk to performing arts people. I think this is one of the reality, and this is one of the occasions that we bring different sectors together. And in many cases, they need to talk to really drive the whole sector forward, right? So this conference is really a rare opportunity. So we also see that artists often face precarity, they have paid censorship, they have the digital exploration. For example, many artists are on gig job, they are not considered, they are officially employed. So for example, during the COVID time, when the government do inventory of people who they can provide unemployment benefits to, when the people lose their job because of COVID, artists are not counted because they never really have an employed job to start with. So that is the big challenge for them. Many countries also posing censorship on the work of artists, which results in the fact that they had to be withdrawn from exhibition or tours, so that impacted their income. And also there's many face imprisonment or online bully because of the work that they do. And then now we have this new dimension of AI on how cultural data is being used to train AI, right? And then AI now starting producing artwork that really put the artists in the risk of not being able to sell their work, not being able to distribute their work because AI can just produce something very quick. So that really a big challenge. And then we also see cultural heritage remain vulnerable to the conflict and climate shocks. So this region, this East Asia region, luckily is one of the very peaceful region, But then climate change is a very, very big challenge for this region, and cultural heritage is deeply, deeply impacted. And then I want to just highlight on two gaps that I didn't mention in the previous slide because I have separate slides for them. The first one is the gap in gender equality and leadership disparity. So we see that gender equality remains one of the critical challenge, while 88% of state parties have gender policies, very few apply this gender policy to the culture sector. So women are in less position in leadership position. They also face more issue of the payment, visibility, access disparities. So basically, a lot of the true cultural diversity cannot be achieved without the women full participation and leadership in the cultural life. And another challenge is really the lack of reliable data and the monitoring system. So while the global report try to get as much data as possible across the countries, across different reports submitted to UNESCO, many countries do not have a system to collect cultural data. So we don't know how reliable and how comprehensive the data that they provide to us is. So the global report also develops the results framework, including 6 areas that I introduced earlier, and then a set of outcomes and indicators that we can encourage the country to work on, so that we can slowly putting together these cultural statistics for documenting and monitoring the contribution of culture. And so here, this show a few global momentum. I would not repeat again, but we are now trying our all the efforts to gear toward the UNESCO Mondial 2029, which will take place to really measure on the work that we have done over the past 4 years, and that will be an important moment to advocate for the cultural goal for the post-2030 agenda. So I already, talked enough about why we need the cultural goals, but then I just wanted to end the last few points on the situation of our East Asian countries. East Asian, our office covers China, including Hong Kong SAR and Macau SAR. We cover the 2 Koreas, we cover Korea, Japan and Mongolia. And it is the 3 countries, especially China, Korea, Japan, are the most advanced country with highest investment in culture and most advanced cultural institution. But then the work to really continue to strengthen the governance by stronger participation of the civil society, artist-led, youth-led participation is one of the priorities that we would like to continue to focus on. We would like to focus on the connection across the cultural domains to really embrace the holistic visions and impacts of the cultural sector. Youth engagement and capacity building for youth is really important to build a new generation of culture for sustainability leaders across the region to drive the whole sector forward. We are very interested to work on the topics of culture and AI, because to see how AI can impact, but also to minimize the unwanted benefits that AI would be imposing on the culture sector. And with the climate resilience, there's a strong linkage to the culture sector. That is something that we would be very, very interested and look forward to work with everyone. So this year, the UNESCO state parties will have proposed for an international decade for culture and sustainable development to start from 2027 until 2036. So this proposal would go to the UN General Assembly next year and hopefully would get adopted, so that we would really have the whole decades that we can continue to work together to promote this important culture for sustainability issue. And I would really look forward to working with everyone of you to drive this agenda forward for a sustainable future for all. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Han, for her sharing, and also the latest report on where are the gaps and what are the areas that we can work on further. So next, we have some good experience from the other part of Asia Pacific region, from Australia, to share with us. They have recently initiated a new initiative called Creative Climate that really link culture, art and culture to climate resilience and climate change agenda. So we have a very important two distinguished guests joining us online, Ms. Catherine Jones and also Ms. Anghart Wing Jones, and they are both facilitator of Creative Climate. So without further ado, may please join me in welcoming them online, and please give a round of applause to welcome Dan online here. And also, please, you have the floor now. So can you hear me? Yeah, okay, great. Perhaps you can start to share the screens and see if everything is right.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for this invitation to join the conference digitally. I am feeling a lot of FOMO, actually, to not be in the room there with you today. But my colleague Angharad and I, we're really thrilled, and we really wanted to thank Anna, Lewis and Benny for inviting us to join today. So I'm Catherine Jones. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm joining today from the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation here in Naarm, Melbourne. And I'm a co-facilitator of Creative Climate that we're here to discuss today. Over to you, Angharad.
Thanks, Catherine. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Angharad Wing Jones. I'm co-facilitator of Creative Climate with my dear friend and colleague, Catherine. I'm also calling in from Naarm and acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional custodians on the unceded lands that I'm living on. I'm a settler, white-skinned woman in my 60s. I've got what I hope qualifies as a soft mullet, and I use she, her pronouns. And yes, thanks to Louis for the invite to this incredible symposium, and to Anna for convening this session, and to Dr. Duong for that great presentation on culture as the missing SDG. It's really great to be part of this global community of artists and organisations making change.
So we're here today to talk about Creative Climate, which is the new peak body for arts, culture and climate action that has we've just developed this year. So I wanted to give a little background to start with. Creative Australia, which is our federal funding body, and for those of you in the room, it's the equivalent of the Hong Kong Arts Development Council in Australia. At the end of last year, they put out an expression of interest for organisations and consortiums of organisations in Australia to take on delivering climate action services to the arts and culture sector. So Angharad and I together as co-facilitators put in an expression of interest for a consortium approach that we'll talk a little bit about shortly. And the contract was for 4 years of funding to work with organisations, independent artists and institutions in Australia to develop climate action and to really start organisations on the road towards net zero, amongst other things, but also on the work of the cultural transformation that's needed as we face climate change in Australia. So we were successful with our bid to take on the contract, and we developed Creative Climate and we just started earlier this year. As I said, we've been funded for 4 years, and our remit is quite large. We're working across all of the art forms in Australia except for film. So performing arts, visual arts, literature, music, and our objectives are, we've got 4 main objectives. So we're to develop tools and resources to build capacity and help the sector prepare for build their climate resilience and climate change. We're to undertake advocacy work on behalf of the arts and culture sector. We take on convening of the sector to really bring people together to have these conversations and to build capacity. And then we also have a leadership role as well. So it's quite a huge remit, but we're very lucky that as a consortium, we're doing it with a group of other organisations and collectives, you know, so that we've got a lot of brains trust to do that work. I'll turn it over to you now, Angharad, to talk further.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kath. So yes, we're made up of 4 small but powerful arts organisations with Kath, myself and Matt Wicking as facilitators. And collectively, we bring intergenerational, intersectional perspectives and many decades of experience in culture-led climate action. We've worked with each other in different projects over many years, and we came together to create Creative Climate as friends with deep trust and a shared intent to respond to and support the sector in climate justice and adaptation. And with a commitment to experiment, knowing that we won't fix what's broken with the same tools that created the problem. Each of the consortium members brings a really distinctive approach and arts practice to the project. Centre for Rewilding was co-founded by Claire G. Coleman, a Willaman Noongar woman, together with Jen Ray, who's Métis Australian. Grounded in First Nations knowledge systems and protocols, the Centre for Rewilding is a brave 100-year project with a focus on intergenerational justice and deepening dynamic collaborative relationships across sectors with collaborations across Australia and internationally. A Climate for Art is led by Lana Nguyen and Aliki Reid, and it's an organisation that unifies the arts around the issue of our changing climate through divestment practices and community building. At last count, their campaign had successfully diverted $67 million from the arts sector out of fossil fuel investment. PVI Collective make participatory adventures and creative interventions that playfully agitate the spaces between the climate crisis, late-stage capitalism, political inertia, and Australia's deep entanglement with fossil fuel capital. PVI will be integral into the development of creative campaign labs in the lead up to COP31, supported by British Council. Green Music Australia are the lead organisation that Creative Climate is nesting in. They were founded in 2012, and they're the national peak body for music and the environment, driving sector-wide sustainability and climate advocacy. Over to you, Kath.
So we started earlier this year, and I would have to say that the past 12 months, we've really kind of been in startup phase. So we've been figuring out how to do this work together as a consortium and also building our networks across the country. It's particularly important that a lot of us are based in Melbourne, in Naarm. But we have to, of course, work nationally, and we also, Australia's a very large country, so we have to work regionally and remotely as well. So it's really important that we're thinking at that scale right from the start. So we launched in the middle of the year with a website, and I would really encourage you to have a look at the website because there's already some terrific tools and resources available for free on it. So it's creativeclimate.org.au. We're also starting to build the community around the climate action work. There's a lot of terrific artists working in this space in Australia. There's great leadership from some of our institutions and some of our organisations. But I would have to say the bulk of the activism work is being done by independent artists in Australia. So there's really a kind of important stage of levelling the playing field so that all organisations and institutions feel like they can get on with the important work that they need to do in building resilience for their organisation and for the arts and culture sector more broadly. Some of the more specific things we've done, and Harrod will talk shortly about a beautiful planting project that we undertook, but we also needed a decent amount of time to work as a consortium and look at the tools and resources that all of us bring and how we're going to work with the sector with those tools and also think about developing new tools. So Angharad took on a consultation process quite earlier this year to really look at what the gaps were. And we will also be doing a much larger piece of work on that with organisations and institutions next year. So we spent a bit of time recently on country together with some other invited guests who were leading artists in this space, really to try and think about how we tackle this job and also how we then kind of build the plan over for the coming years. So that has been a really important and generative part of the process, because in many ways the process by which we work together is a microcosm of how the sector needs to work more broadly. I'll hand over to you, Angharad, to talk about planting.
So planting is a large-scale mass community planting event and celebration that happened in September this year. It occurred all over Naarm, along the riverways and across outside of Naarm into the regional areas. But people gathered in Fed Square at the culmination, which is the central public space in Naarm. And we thought about planting as an antidote from the kind of failure in trust in offsetting programs and this, achievement of net zero through offsetting. So we're thinking of planting as a cultural insetting program, doing the work of regenerating and restoring our habitats together and in place. We worked with Fed Square team, with Landcare, which is an incredible organisation of community volunteers across Australia. And we also work with Melbourne Water. There are hundreds of community organisations that are engaged in different aspects of caring for country. And we worked with 15 of those community orgs on this project with over 20 artists, including First Nations and Pacifica cultural practitioners. So in one morning, we planted 7,500 trees, despite it being probably the worst weather of the year. And we engaged 420 people in that activity. So the objectives of the project really were to centre First Nations knowledge in care for country and to celebrate and profile the work of volunteers, encouraging a broader public to engage with that care for country. We wanted to deepen community members' sense of connection to country and to each other, and bring care for country and artistic practices together as a new form of cultural practice. The evaluation showed that planting achieved all of that, with participants also reporting a sense of tranquility, empowerment and community, and feelings of hope, peace and connection to nature, which is a pretty rare set of beautiful feelings to engender, particularly at this time when we're facing such devastating impacts of climate change. So planting built some enduring relationships between many agencies who work in regeneration but rarely collaborate at scale. And it's a replicable model that could be repurposed across the country using the powerful cultural capital and narrative building capacities of our arts and cultural organisations. We're going to continue to do it again at Fed Square and intend to build it into all of our programs. We're very happy to share the model if anyone is interested to do something similar. We also worked with, in partnership with the National Peak Body for Performing Arts Centres, Presenters and Producers across Australia, called PAC, in a program called Adaptive Futures. The amazing Rosie Dyer approached us to partner on a program to support people working in the arts and culture sector to take the next step. Rosie is a dynamo and a powerful and trusted advocate with a lot of knowledge and understandings of the issues and barriers organisations face to make meaningful change in their operations and programming in this space. So we collaborated with Rosie to co-design a free online professional course of 6 sessions on developing board and executive competence in climate risk management, managing emissions, understanding the unique role that programming can play in supporting climate solutions, particularly in connecting with First Nations, and understanding the benefits of a climate narrative to engaging audiences. So hundreds of people have been joining these online sessions and revealing the appetite of this work and desire for change in our organisations and our artists and our audiences.
Even though our focus is very much on the Australian arts and culture sector, we know that it's really, really crucial to be internationally engaged. You know, climate change is a global problem. We need to be able to share our learnings and learn from others who are, you know, ahead of us. I thought it was really interesting that Dr. Hahn was talking about you know, how different regions were in their agendas around climate resilience and arts and culture. So it's been very important for us to be internationally connected right from the start. Earlier this year, we were able to convene a small group of international presenters, artists, producers, and influencers in Melbourne who were attending for the Asiatopa Festival in February. And that became the start of an international network for creative climate. So we're thrilled, obviously, to be participating in this event, and our connection with Lewis is really important to us and our work. But we've also started other conversations across the region as well. And one of those is with Theatre Practice in Singapore, ahead of the ISPA Congress that's going to be held in Singapore in May in 2026. So for us, that conversation is, it's really crucial for Australian artists, presenters, and institutions. But I think also for our region, we do know that our Pacific neighbours are really bearing the brunt of climate impacts in a way that a lot of the rest of the world aren't, even though everyone, I think, is impacted in some way or shape and form. So we have an opportunity really to profile Pacific leadership and really learn from them as the kind of leaders in adaptation at this point in time. So yeah, it's been a really fundamental kind of part of how we're thinking about our role within Australia, but also more globally.
And COP31 is a really clear opportunity, particularly should it come to Adelaide, which I think we'll know about within the next couple of weeks, to you know, really bring culture into that policy space in terms of how we respond to climate change. So currently, actually, we have one of our members, Jen Ray from Centre for Rewilding, is attending COP30 and scored a rare blue zone ticket. So she'll be coming back soon, bringing and sharing info with the sector on how the COP forum works, what the outcomes were, and how arts and culture can best advocate in that policy space. We've been holding online forums facilitated by our First Nations, Claire Coleman, on the last Friday of every month. We've been sharing what we know about the process and ideas for projects and inviting people to document their offers of support and their needs. so that we have a collective sense of who's doing what and how best we can amplify and support each other. We will, closer to the time, develop an activity info hub, connecting local orgs and artists in Adelaide, and provide information on the different ways folk can engage during COP31. We're developing a toolkit with a series of recommendations based on the many conversations we're having with First Nations knowledge holders and artists, and making sure we're enabling the sector to speak directly to our government and international governments in the lead up to and at COP31. Alongside this, we've been developing a long-form art project that will have a presence nesting in the Museum of Discovery, which is located in Adelaide during COP. We wanted to use the activation of COP for this longer form program and project that has an opportunity to build relationship networks and collective knowledge over time to keep iterating. So Radio Climate is Australia's first globally significant climate work that connects communities and Australian audiences through people, place, country, and collective listening at a scale of unparalleled reach. It's akin to major international works such as The Herd that people might have heard about. This project is First Nations and artist-led, and Radio Climate comprises of 12 commissioned artworks launched in a national series of live listening events, with curated artistic and multidisciplined responses and conversations, a national broadcast program to over 10 million radio listeners, and the lasting resonance of an archive of recordings as a document of what we did at this time, an account for the future. Each commission is simultaneously a cultural work, a civic gesture, and a strategic intervention in public climate discourse. This integrated advocacy transforms listening into action, ensuring that art operates as a lever for real-world change. But at the heart of Radio Climate is listening to country as an ancient First Nations practice of care, knowledge, and transformation handed down by generations through oral storytelling, ceremony, and song. So we've got a big application that we're putting into Creative Australia, but we've designed the structure to support smaller iterations over time as capacity and resources allow.
And so, friends, how can we stay in touch? As internationally engaged colleagues, how can we work together and learn from each other? We'd love you to visit our website, sign up for our e-news, and reach out to either Angharad or I if you've got ideas about how we could collaborate together, or just wanting to kind of share information and build our networks. Thank you so much for having us. We're really thrilled to be here and look forward to the discussion that's going to follow.
Thank you very much, Catherine and Harrod. We will now invite our respondent of this section, Mr. Patrick Ho, Head of Sustainable Development at Swire Properties, to be on stage. We also invite Anna, Dr. Dong Bin Hang, to join us on stage for the panel discussion. Thank you.
I sit in the middle. Okay. So, hello, testing. Yes. It's our great honor to have a respondent from locally from Hong Kong, Mr. Patrick Ho, Head of Sustainability of Swire Properties. We heard about the global report from Dr. Han from the UNESCO very international global perspective, looking at the missing SDG goal and try to incorporate culture into our future agenda. And then we have very good experience sharings and initiative from Australia, talking about how they actually makes things happen and transform concept into actions. So may I invite you to share your perspective, and also especially from a private sector perspective, while we have to work together in upcoming future? What can we do together and your experience?
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you very much, Anna, and thank you very much for Dr. Han's presentation and Australian colleagues joining us online. Very happy to be able to join this. Thank you, Louis, and for the invitation. And as a real estate developer, I think our core mission, while we develop the places, like Taikoo Place, just behind me, City Plaza, Pacific Place in Hong Kong, and some of the other locations, I think there is a very important responsibility as a real estate developer to within the culture and sustainable development concepts. I think the core reason for doing this is to, of course, enhance the quality of life for the people that work there, for the people to live there as the residents, and also visitors. And I think we do this basically through two spectrum of work, of the design of the places that we have put out to the market, and of course, the long-term operational strategies that we have. And a quick response to Dr. Han's presentation, I agree very much, is that how important it is to have the culture as a sort of overarching and underpinning strategy to promote the concept of sustainability in all ESG aspects in the strategy. So back in 2016, when the company Swire launched our Sustainable Development 2030 strategy, we have a specific strategy and component called communication, engagement, and education. That's indeed a very important cornerstone for whatever targets that we set, for whatever strategy we have to improve our environmental, social performance. We never forget culture and the education engagement is an important piece of work. Maybe just take an example for the pin that I wear here. It's 1.5 degrees Celsius. Does people know what is that about? Yeah, probably this is 1.5 degrees important. Now the COP30 is happening. It's also the United Nations has been driving all the governments, right, to come up with the climate ambitions. And as Swire, of course, is a very supporter of the climate Paris Agreement. Back in 2019, we set ourselves the science-based targets. That is a decarbonization strategy, very aggressive one, to align with Paris Agreement. And we think about how to bring this message, very typical technical concept, into our stakeholders. So our communication team actually come up with the idea of this pin. So not only myself, if you come to Taikoo Place, for example, our concierge people, our frontline people, they all wear this badge. So people, when they come, if you have a meeting there, when you see this badge, you will wonder, what is that about? And our frontline people will actually tell you about, this is the climate decarbonization target of the company. And we need your support because, every office tenants that we have to actually reduce their carbon emissions to support that. And every year, if you have visitors, the little sustainable actions that you have, recycle more, save energy, is all the important areas that can support the Paris Agreement of United Nations. So the culture, as the case, is so important. And in terms of the strategy itself, I think what we call placemaking, okay, 社區建構, is focused on creating vibrant and sustainable communities. That I think we could do more as a real estate developer to positively influence society and environment. And one of the key elements under placemaking strategy is a community investment piece, which aim at fostering inclusive and thriving communities. And our support to arts and culture, okay, to the topic today, is also an important part of that. And we have 5 key focus areas, namely community care, well-being, environmental stewardship, youth empowerment, and of course, last but not least, arts, culture, and heritage, what I hope is also aligned with what Dr. Hans has mentioned about these many different areas. And our goal, at the end of the day, through our places, that we develop and create and operate, is to make arts and culture a part of everyday's life. And to this end, we have a very rich public art collection, what I was trying to show in some of our portfolios here, some of the art pieces, which I hope you would also have visited some of them. And actually, this is something new. We started actually our very first installation of our public art is on Tai Bu Sing back in 1970s as a residential unit at that time, right? Swire history is that we have a Taikoo shipyard, those were 140 years ago, right? But later it was converted into Taikoo Shing, what we see today. And at that time, we already started to have these art installation. Of course, we continue to invest in these, activities, hardware and software. And in Taikoo Place, maybe some of you have also visited a place called Artistry, which is, we started to integrate that in the Taikoo Place community back in 2008, which is a multifunctional spaces dedicated for art exhibition and art performances. And we have hosted so far over 200 activities, and a lot of them are related to art and culture, and attracting over 1 million of visitors. And we also, every year, we also actively sponsor arts and culture activities, such as a strategic partnership with Art Basel in Hong Kong, and also in Beijing, the Beijing Music Festival in China. And secondly, Swire Properties pursue quite a lot of effort to have partnership with NGOs, because it's so important. We don't, do social causes and environmental causes as good as NGOs, right? But we need that partnership to make it happen. Friends from Australia have shared a lot of, how NGO could actually drive policy advocacy. I guess this is an important area. We have actually run a very good one of the studies, one of the initiatives is Swire Properties Placemaking Academy, which was launched a few years ago, back in 2019, which we offer university students a on-the-job training program to have the students to design and manage our annual flagship community event, the White Christmas Street Fair, that is happening in a month in Tong Chong Street, which invite all of you would be able to come and enjoy the festive and also the charity element of the activities. And of course, the students are the core of that. So we provide the on-the-job training, the mentorship and hands-on training, so that they can also unleash the power of the younger generations. But at the same time, we bring this event to for a charity cause, and also we try to evaluate what is the social value of doing this. And last year we did a very pioneering study with University of Hong Kong to try to measure the social benefit for that program. And this was about an estimated figure of 60 million Hong Kong dollars we have been generated in terms of social value that we created with the Swire Properties Placemaking Academy. And
may I invite you to quickly also summarize, because I want to open the floor and give the opportunity for our audience to
maybe
ask
just
questions.
to do one more slide. This is in terms of I talk about the hardware. I think I didn't have time to, of course, to talk a lot about, but just try to cherry pick one example of how, as a developer, can do more. As one of our latest development in Shanghai. It's called Zhangyuan. Because cultural heritage is indeed very important. In Shanghai, Zhangyuan, which is also the largest piece of and best preserved architectural element called Shikumen, Sekfumun, which is the architectural compound in Shanghai with a history of more than 140 years. And to protect this Shikumen complex from the impact of some underground construction works, actually the engineering team have to reallocate the whole entire structure. And the structure building itself very heavy, weighing over 7,500 tons. And a lot of Shikumen structure there, and covering over 4,000 square meters to another location. And after the underground structure was completed, this whole Shikumen have to be moving back to the original location. So during this relocation process, we have employed more than 400 robots, claw robots that were employed in coordination, very precisely controlling the horizontal movement of the whole Shikumen building. It moved around 10 meters per day. Very slowly, its building is moved from the original foundation and then to another location. After the construction built in underground, we then move back the building back to the original location. So this is important that the construction process will have to ensure the structural integrity is being preserved and maintained, and also the historical appearance, is being preserved as its best form. So I guess this is also an example where we try to utilize technology you just mentioned about technologies. I guess this is also important to integrate that concept. I hope, with this development is opening by phases, that you will also have the time to visit Shanghai. It's near Nanjing West Road, where our original Taikoo Hui development is there. This is a next extension for that. So, how to mix, heritage conservations, and artistics, architectural pieces, and also, the sort of commercial activities coming together. I guess this is example how government, how private developer and NGOs and arts groups, architectural groups can actually work together. I guess this is an important way forward for and mainstreaming sustainability as a piece of, also 2030 goals of UN SDGs. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Patrick, for sharing the perspective, a local perspective. And in this panel, we are very lucky that we have a global perspective, we have the national perspective and also local perspective. And we also have government sectors, the private sectors, and I myself represent civil society from NGOs, etc. So I would, without further ado, I would like to open the floor because I'm sure there's a lot of questions from you all, from the in-person attendance and also online attendance. So please feel free to raise your hand, and we have the opportunity to ask questions. Yes, Louis.
Thank you very much for Dr. Han and Catherine and Howard and also Patrick's sharing. I think this is the first time Hong Kong has this platform, cross-sector platform from business, civil society, and arts and culture and heritage to sit together to look at the climate change and sustainability matters. My very direct question is, how are we going to connect with the world, with your organizations in Asia Pacific and in say, and also the UNESCO? How can we work together? Because it is so important that we do not feel alone. We do not feel that we are doing it alone, because in Hong Kong it's a very business society. The sustainability agenda and also climate change is not always, it's never the top priority in the organization. And how can we link up together to increase our visibility and our weight in the society? How can we, and also one thing for Catherine and Harold, we have just announced that we will do this conference again next October. So we look forward to more, say, collaboration. How can we work on that? Thank you.
I think one of the ways to keep, to bring your visibility is maybe we can continue to work together. So I think just there are some, for example, I mean, definitely this initiative is very worth to showcase. I will personally keep it in mind because UNESCO, we organize a lot of conferences, a lot of events, and I think they are, if they are good occasions, relevant occasions, we would really like to invite you to come and speak and share these experiences. Within UNESCO, and I think also within the broader UN, there's this system of accredited NGOs. So we have the accredited NGOs under different conventions, different mechanisms. So I think you certainly, I can share with you some information. You could look into signing up to be accredited NGOs into some of these mechanisms. So that would allow you to come and take part in all these global events. And of course, we have a lot of global events that open for side events. Even when you are not an accredited NGOs, they always open the side events called publicly, and any interested stakeholders can submit the proposal to open a booth, open a seminar within the framework of this global discussion. So I think that would be another mechanism to really bring the voices from this region more broadly.
Thank you. Thank you. We have the second questions from the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a general question regarding language, because I think culture, when we talk about culture, we needlessly speaking, we need to address the problem of questions. So I was checking the First Nations in Australia before the British colonization. There were like 250 different dialects and indigenous languages spoken in the land, the unceded land. So I checked Dr. Han's website of Mondial Cult. So it's based on a French word like culture mondiale. So I checked the website of the UNESCO and I found that in French, the word sustainability does not exist on your website. It's like development, durable. So the question is about language, because how do we address the indigenous languages while we are still talking about conservation and preservation of Aboriginal cultures? So is there a disparity that we need to address here? And also that question also would be directing to the Zhang Yuan, because people lived there before the renovation and upgrading or gentrification were the underprivileged people who only spoke Shanghai dialect. But now Zhang Yuan, I've been there only 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago. Now it's a very niche and very luxurious place. People are speaking like English and Mandarin there. So how do we preserve these indigenous languages without the, getting rid of the, preservation? How do we do that, addressing the language problems? Thank you.
Yeah. For this question, may I invite the two facilitators from Creative Climate? You have much more experience working with the First Nations people. So please, may I invite you to share some of your insights?
Yeah, sure. I mean, maybe I can begin with a little anecdote really from within the creative consortium that, obviously through colonization, many Indigenous languages have been not lost, but submerged or repressed. And there's an incredible work happening across the country with many different language groups recovering language and relearning. And Claire Coleman, who's a Noongar woman who's part of Centre for Rewilding, is leading a curatorial and consultation process where she's connecting. She spent 6 months traveling across Australia, meeting with First Nations groups from many different tribes and countries, and asking them not only how they would like to engage with Creative Climate, but most critically, what would be the process that they would need to undertake to feel that their voices are being heard. Because quite often in our situation, advisory groups are set up with good intent to engage with First Nations folk, but many times also those governance systems are not appropriate to the communities and the situations that they are living in and the way that they engage with each other. And Claire has been, carefully consulting, listening deeply to those different organizations and communities, and is also herself learning her language in order that when there is a gathering of these different groups during COP31, hopefully, she will be able to address First Nations communities in her own language. So I suppose, not to minimize the huge kind of barriers and significant challenges, but I think that actually, a crisis of this scale requires everyone to work way beyond their perceived limitations. And I'm so impressed that Claire, who is an incredible advocate and an incredible writer, is doing all of that and at the same time learning her language. And I think I totally agree. I think language is at the heart of culture. And so anything that we can do to support that is really important. And I think gathering together, spending time together is absolutely, the most important activity in order to be able to take action together.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I heard deep listening, also accessibility as well as equity throughout the process is something very important we have to uphold in the process. And I think in UNESCO convention, etc., we actually quite emphasize the use of a local indigenous language. Yeah.
And yeah. And hopefully, I mean, with this, like what you mentioned, we hear many different things, the discrepancy in different concepts that has to be harmonized and to build a shared understanding to preserve traditional languages that have been talking about, and even just simple thing. I mean, we now having the discussion in English and Cantonese with the translation with AI. Asia Pacific is one of the most difficult region to work in terms of languages because we do not have a common language the way Africa or the way Latin America have. And so how to make these kinds of events accessible to people who do not speak English and Cantonese is also a big challenge. So I think you already raised many of the issues that we probably need to continue to think about, but how to ensure all the voices are heard and to ensure the accessibility to access to participation to all the activities that we organize.
Yeah, I think from a private developer, I think D&I, diversity and inclusiveness, and all sort of including, of course, the social inclusiveness, dialect inclusiveness is indeed an important agenda of all the properties that we try to put out to the market. I guess it's get a lot to the actual stakeholder engagement work and community involvement in the whole development process, designs and operations. So I didn't have time, of course, we have a lot of initiative on the cultural aspect, how we have done works with the local NGOs in our China provinces to promote dialect, actually including, Cantonese, right? We have one workshops in our portfolios to actually promote those, important, intelligence, heritage and intellectual capacities. And also, I guess, as a developer, where we have also a lot of international brands that is having their shop, their office in our portfolio. I think we stand a very unique position to how to connect West and East. So how to bring the international, sort of impact and culture, and then to interact with the local, Chinese culture. I guess is a very big topic, and also how we can use our platform to bring the discussion like today, right? We have so many different sorts of perspective and different value from different cultures. I think this is an area that Zhangyuan and the future development would be a very important area to make this all together, right? Come all the sort of NGOs, art groups, and from the private sector also come together to how to make better use of the place for everyone to actually talk about the ultimate sustainable development of different cultures, so that we can balance economic, social, and environmental impact together. I think that's just a lot of collaborations that I see the opportunities for doing such. So welcome further, sort of comments about the way that we should be doing. I guess very welcome to have that discussion. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you very much for the sharing. And to conclude, we are running out of time. But I think we could not sacrifice the time for the next section. But to conclude, I think the language is actually one of the very key issues. And other than languages, I mean the terminology that we use to discuss sustainable development is very difficult to understand for lay people or like frontline staffs. And one of the lines I pick up from the Creative Climate sharing is that we have to build the capacity of the board and also executive level people to really understand the language and then somehow translate them in other terminologies or words so that the frontline staff or other kind of workers are able to understand and connect. So thank you very much for your question. It brings up a very important issues. And I think we have a very fruitful discussion today, and both guests are here, so please feel free to approach them to ask many more questions, and I'm sure we all love to work together to put culture into the sustainability agenda. So thank you very much for the participations, and thank you very much for Catherine and Engelhardt to join us online, and really thank you.